Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 19th part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 19, Back Together. Izumi spent most of the next couple of days thinking. Thinking about One for All, about becoming a symbol of hope, about those who attack them, about the three girls she found herself regularly snuggling up to during the night. You know, normal stuff. One for All was her primary focus since it was her quirk and it was acting up. The vision of the previous users was shocking and unexpected. Not even All Might had seen something like that before, and he had the quirk for 40 years. Something had happened to One for All, and it was freaking her out. She saw enough death during the USJ, and she didn't need to be haunted by the previous users of her quirk. Becoming a symbol of hope was at the bottom of her list, due to it being so far off that she could save thinking about it until later. And whilst she could worry about the people who attacked them, the JSDF and who knows how many heroes were already worrying about them, she'd leave that to them. And so that left her with the last thing on her list, as well as finding herself in a situation that had been very common over the past few days. Achiko, can you please let go of me? Izumi asked, once again trying to remove a wild Higuraka. No. Achiko flat out replied, arms and legs wrapped around Izumi's body. But it's almost 9 in the morning. We've gotta get up. Izumi said, trying to make the girl see reason. 9 was a bit late getting up, especially for Izumi since she likes to get up much earlier for morning exercises. Our classmates are returning today. No. Achiko said, world outside cold and cruel, bed warm and snuggles comfy. You said that last night, Himiko remarked as she and Tsuyu tried, and failed, to separate Achiko from Izumi and the night before. You really do need to get up, Achiko. Tsuyu added. We can't spend all day snuggling, ribbit. What if it's a school day? Class don't start back up for us until tomorrow. Achiko retorted. And what about tomorrow? Himiko inquired. If you did this tomorrow, then we're all going to be late. So get up, girl. We have things we've got to do today. Achiko let out a low groan. Fine, she said as she reluctantly let go of Izumi, but I demand more later. Girl, you get snuggles from those three every night, Durandal remarked. I think you may have a snuggle addiction. Achiko frowned. I know. It's just that dash. I used to snuggle up to my parents when I was younger. I kept having nightmares when I was young. Being close to my parents whilst I slept kept them away. I haven't had anyone to snuggle up to since they died. The other three girls lowered their heads. Izumi already knew that Achiko's parents were gone, but Himiko and Tsuyu didn't, so the news surprised them. I am sorry to hear that, Tsuyu said with a frown. Your parents. They loved you, didn't they? Himiko asked somberly. Achiko nodded, tears forming around her eyes. More than anything in the universe. We weren't exactly well off, but no matter what happened, they would always try and make me smile. Himiko shot over to Achiko, tears falling from her eyes. I'm so sorry you had to lose them. You shouldn't have lost people who were so kind. Achiko was quick to return Himiko's hug. Despite having spent most of the night snuggling up to the girl, this hug was more comforting. Himiko didn't know what it was like to have a loving family. Hers was just a fard, a mask her parents made her wear. Achiko's parents sounded so much kinder, but they were taken away from her. Why did the nice ones have to die, leaving the shit ones alive? If she could, then she would swap the deaths of Achiko's parents with her own, that way neither of them would have to suffer. Tsuyu and Izumi soon joined in the hug, comforting both of their friends. All four of them were broken in one way or another. And whilst they had received help in one form or another, it was up to their friends to help put the final pieces back together. It would take time, yes, but healing always does. Once the three of them had finished comforting Achiko, the four of them got dressed for the day and went downstairs. You know, as much as I do like snuggling up to you three, maybe next time we should snuggle in someone else's room, Himiko remarked as they made their way downstairs. I'm getting tired of waking up to All Might's face every morning. Yeah, it's getting repetitive, Tsuyu added. I think a change of scenery would be nice, ribbit. I think that too, Achiko said. Maybe we should start a rota on whose room we snuggle in. Starting with my room. Fine, Himiko said with a smile, then we can go to Tsuyu's room and then mine. Fine, Tsuyu said before she bopped Himiko on the head and call me Sue. I don't know how you girls can sleep with all those All Might posters around, Durandal inquired. With fear in my heart and disappointment in their many faces, Achiko replied. Wah, wah. Izumi said, looking shocked. Since the four of them had come down late, most of the students had already eaten. But they didn't mind, most of them had a late breakfast anyway, so there was still something warm for them. There was a mix of happiness and sadness in the air. Happiness because their fellow classmates would be returning today, and sadness because they may still lose a few of them. No one talked about it, but they all knew it. Some of them might decide to drop out after this, the events of the USJ being too much for them. The daily sessions with Hound Dog were helpful, but even with that help, some of them might not think heroics is for them after this. After all, not everyone can deal with death on such a large scale. No one knew just who would want to drop down to general education, but in their hearts, they all knew that someone was going to drop out. The question was, who? By the time afternoon came around, the first of their classmates arrived. Well, dorm mates would be a more appropriate term. May? Several students said as they stood around the main door, half expecting their classmates to arrive. Not that they weren't happy to see her again, since she had been spending most of her time in the teacher's dorm with her siblings. May was standing in the doorway with a large smile on her face. Beside her were two young children, a girl and a boy, no older than 2. Both kids had pink, purple, and blue hair. But that's where the similarities ended. The young girl looked like a much younger version of their homeroom teacher Kana, right down to her hair and eyes. The young boy on the other hand had short dreadlocks and brown eyes. Both children were wearing matching Nizu onesies. May. Who are these two? Hitoshi asked. These are my siblings. May replied with a smile, this is my younger brother Kimoto, and my younger sister Teshima. She explained, pointing towards her respective sibling, they'll be living with us from now on. Your siblings? Inesa said, his eyes moving between the two children. May nodded yep. Since my parents are still in the hospital, it's become impractical for them to stay in the teacher's dorm, so they're staying here. I'll need some help getting their rooms ready. She said before focusing on Izumi and no asking about their quirks, Izumi. They're still 2, so they haven't come in yet. Izumi nodded. She knew there was no point in asking someone so young about their quirks. They don't come around until you're 4 after all. Well, there are 8 rooms still free for use, Momo said. I'm sure we can organize 2 of them for your siblings to use. Will you need help bringing their stuff here? May shocked her head nope. I've got that all taken care of. She said before she and her 2 siblings stepped away from the door as several robots walked in. They were long with 4 legs, and each one had several boxes strapped to their backs. I made these babies last year to help with moving equipment around, May explained, and to offer lifts for my siblings. I'm hoping to have these replace the trolleys UA uses. Well, that will make moving things around easier, Toro remarked. Some of us brought a lot of stuff with us and it's not easy to move. So, what's the chance of these things exploding? Achiko asked. 0, May replied, which surprised everyone present. What? I wouldn't have my younger siblings ride on them if there was a chance that they could go boom. What kind of responsible older sister do you think I am? The kind that keeps blowing up her workshop, Teshima replied deadpan. May turned towards Teshima with an annoyed look on her face. Yep, you're definitely going to grow up to be just like mother. Teshima smiled at May's remark. May shook her head before turning back to the others. Okay, so, I'm going to need help getting this stuff to their rooms. Whirlwind, Animal Crossing. I want you 2 to help with Kimoto's stuff. She said, pointing at Inesa and Koji and Matter Replicator. You will help me with Teshima's stuff. Whirlwind? Inesa asked, sounding confused about the nickname. Same with Koji. Matter Replicator? Momo asked, having no idea what a Matter Replicator was. Come on. The sooner we're done here, the sooner you can get back to waiting for your classmates. May said before she dragged Momo behind her towards the girl's side of the room, with Teshima following behind. You two be nice to Kimoto. Both Inesa and Koji sweat dropped before turning Kimoto, who so far had remained quiet throughout the entire exchange. The boy just stared at the two hero course students. So, where's my room? There's a free room on the 3rd floor. You can use that, Inesa said. Kimoto nodded before he followed the two boys to his new room. So, that happened, Himiko remarked. I wouldn't have known that Kana was married or had children if Izumi hadn't told us. Yeah, Minoru added. I wonder what he said before May suddenly appeared out of nowhere with her Rorsch railgun pointed at his head. Finish that sentence and you'll find out what it's like to be a railgun slug. May said, with a slightly crazier smile on her face. Minoru nodded frantically, not wanting to become a projectile anytime soon. May, realizing that the appropriate fear had been put into Minoru, put her railgun away and rushed back over to Teshima's room. I hope at least he drops out, Tsuyu said quietly to Achiko, making sure that they could not be heard by Minoru. The organizing of the rooms for May's siblings didn't take long, only about half an hour. Once that was done, May settled down on the sofa with them watching some old anime with airships called vanships. Yeah, they weren't sure about it either. So, how are those things flying again? Toru asked, having decided to sit down and watch with them, along with most of the class, since there wasn't much else to do but wait until their friends arrived. And what are those things that keep coming out of the destroyed ships? Also, are you sure this is okay to show to a 2-year-old? It's fine, May said. They're okay with it. In fact, they're the ones who asked me to put it on for them in the first place. Why do I find that hard to believe? Toru said. May was about to reply but was stopped by the sound of the main door opening, followed by the sound of people entering the building with Back in Black by AC/DC playing in the background. What's up, 1A? We're back. Nito announced as he, Denki, Tenya, Hanta, Kyoka, Yui, Mina, Fumikage, Ijiro and Rikito walked into the dorm. With 2B's homeroom teacher Vlad King behind them. Their classmates immediately got up and rushed over to meet them, relieved to see all of them out of the hospital and fine. To an extent. Izumi's eyes quickly focused on Denki, who had an eye patch over his right eye, as well as a large scar over that eye. Kyoka was helping to escort him, no doubt he was struggling to walk due to his lack of depth perception. Izumi couldn't help but notice the scar on Kyoka's arm, as well as the scars the others had. Yui had a nasty one on her left hand, Mina had one on her right leg. And she had it on good authority that Ijiro and Tenya were covered in them. It was horrible how badly some of them got injured, but they were fine now. Fine and safe. And that's all that matters. Welcome back, Izumi said with a smile. I'm glad you've recovered nicely. Why thank you, Izumi. Tenya said with a smile. I'm glad that you were worried about us. Yeah, it's super manly that you're looking out for us, Ijiro added. Well, as class vice representative I think it's good to look out for my classmates, Izumi said. Make sure you are all okay and all that. That's very nice of you, Tenya said with his signature arm chop. Truly you are an inspiration to us all. We've been back less than a minute and Tenya is already back to normal, Mina remarked with a frown, getting a nod from Yui. Who's playing AC/DC? Achiko asked, looking around. That would be me, Kyoka replied, holding up her phone before turning off the music. Oh yes, before I forget, we have 2 new dorm mates, Izumi said before she turned towards the living room. May. Can you introduce your siblings to the others, please? Sure can. May replied before she came over with Kimoto and Teshima. These are my younger siblings. This is my younger brother Kimoto, and this is my younger sister Teshima. It is good to meet you too. Tenya said. May's 2 siblings looked at the gathered students. Is he the one you call mufflers? Teshima asked. Mufflers? Tenya said, taken aback by the nickname. Teshima nodded. Big sis May told us all about the students of 1A Mufflers, Matter Replicator, Whirlwind, Animal Crossing, Froggy, Copy, Pinky, Tape Guy, Battery, Birdie, Machi, Catfamp, Sleepy, Great Boy, Candyman, Wall, Earphones, Ruler, Green Bean, Invisible, and Durandal. Wait, why is Durandal the only one whose name you remember? Hanta asked, slightly miffed that the robot was the only one whose name May had remembered. Because names are hard. May replied without a hint of shame, it's easier to remember the names of my family, as well as the names of robots. Speaking of robots, Green Bean. The hardware upgrade for Durandal should be ready by either tomorrow or the day after. Izumi said, not expecting Green Bean to be May's nickname for her. Oh, that's great. Finally, a hardware update, Durandal said, sounding relieved. It was easy to understand why, since he is about 11 years old and hasn't received any sort of update of any kind during that time. So this should help him improve. Now they needed to work on a software update for him. Yep, May said now that introductions are over, back to Last Exile. She said before she took her sibling back towards the living room. Well, she seems happy, Nina remarked. Also her siblings are so cute. Agreed, they're just so adorable. Toru squealed. Teshima looks just like a younger version of her mother. Should we be worried about the Nizu onesies they were wearing? Hanta asked, looking concerned. I'm sure it's fine, Mina replied with a smile. Well, I'm glad you all made it back safely, Momo said with a smile. Do any of you require help settling back in? She asked. Most of them shook their heads. I would say yes, but Kyoka's helping me out, Denki replied, with Kyoka nodding in agreement. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're all doing alright, Vlad King said behind them, causing the students to turn to face him. Now since you're all here, I have a few things I would like to tell you. First, your homeroom teacher Kana is still recovering and won't be able to teach you for a while, so you'll have a substitute teacher taking over homeroom. You'll meet them tomorrow. Second, the entire school has been advised to give you space since the incident. We don't want our other students accidentally making things worse by crowding around you, he said before he frowned. Also, please don't feel like you're forced to stay here. You all went through a traumatic experience that none of you was prepared for, which the entire staff of UA apologize for. We were supposed to protect you, and we failed. We will do everything we can do to help you recover, even if you decide to drop out, he explained. No one will think any less of you if you decide to drop out of the hero course because of what happened. But don't feel pressured to make a decision now, you have plenty of time to make the decision yourself. Whatever happens, we will be here for you, all of you. The class nodded in silence. They all knew it was a possibility that some of them might drop out. But it was reassuring that they would still be receiving help if they do leave. Anyway, I'll leave you all to settle back in, Vlad King said. See you kids around, he said before he left the dorm and headed back to the 2B dorm. Well, I haven't cooked anything for a while. So I'm going to go make everyone some caramel brownies, Rikito said, much to the class collective delight. No one was going to say no to Rikito's sweets, since they needed something sweet after all the madness they'd been through, as well as time to wind down and relax. Especially those who had been in the hospital. They spent the rest of the day relaxing and catching up with each other. Lessons would be starting back up for them tomorrow, so they were using what time they had left to relax to the fullest. But behind the cheer, the worry about someone leaving the hero course loomed over them. Each of them was worried about the others, wondering who would stay and who would go. It was frightening, knowing that someone around you may want to drop out. Despite only knowing each other for a few days, they had all gotten to know each other well, and none of them wanted to see the others go, for one reason or another. All they could do was wait until someone said something about it. Dinner was a lot livelier than previous nights since the entire class was present as well as May and her siblings. The dorm hadn't felt the same without the entire class here to liven the place up. Everyone decided to call in early that day since tomorrow they would be getting back to normal schoolwork. So they decided that a good night's sleep would benefit them all. And once again, Izumi found herself getting ready to snuggle up to Achiko, Sue, and Himiko, with Durandal on standby. This time, they were in Achiko's room, with the gravity girl, the one the other three were snuggling up to. Just to let you girl know, I'll be getting up early for my morning exercises, Izumi said as she snuggled up to Achiko's side. The light's already off. Oh, do you have to? Himiko asked with a frown, snuggling up to Achiko's other side. Sadly yes, Izumi replied. I have to keep in shape after all, and I've been neglecting them for the past few days. So I should probably get back into doing them. That's fair, Tsuyu said, who was nestled in between Izumi and Achiko. Achiko, being fit is an important part of being a hero. Maybe we should think about working out some more, Ribbit. Izumi nodded, but before she could tell them about the benefits of daily exercises, there was a knock on the door. I'll get it, Achiko said as she climbed over Izumi to get out of bed and walked over to the door. It'll be odd if one of the others got up and opened it since this was Achiko's room. She opened the door, and was surprised to find Momo on the other side, wearing an expensive-looking red nightgown. Momo. What are you doing here? Momo frowned, looking a bit shaken. Is it possible for me to join you? She asked. I don't want to be alone tonight. Sure. I don't see a problem with it, Achiko said before she turned towards the bed. You three won't mind either? I'm okay with Momo joining us, Izumi replied with a smile. It might get a bit cramped, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, more snuggle buddies. Himiko said with a smile, all for having another person to snuggle with. Ribbit Tsuyu croaked, nodding her head. Okay, looks like they're okay with you joining us, Achiko said with a smile. Momo smiled slightly. Thank you, she said with a bow. I am grateful that you are allowing me to join you. I just haven't been sleeping well these past few days, she said as she followed Achiko over to the bed. It's alright, we've all been having nightmares due to what happened, Achiko said as she helped Momo get into bed and snuggle up to Himiko. Achiko then turned on her projector, letting the projected image of the Abyss Cloud Nebula fill the room. You're turning that on? Izumi asked as Achiko climbed back into bed. Yep. It helps me sleep at night, Achiko said as she looked at the nebula with longing eyes. It reminds me of my parents. And makes me feel that, even though they're gone, they're still watching me. Achiko continued to watch the nebula as it slowly rotated, counting the stars that made up the Abyss Cloud Nebula. Smiling as she felt 4 pairs of arms wrap around her. It was slightly cramped in the bed. It wasn't made for 5 people after all. But it was cozy as well. Durandal stayed out of the way as he watched the 5 girls get comfortable in bed. He shook his head. Yep, this is going exactly as he thought it would go. Fucking adorable. The next day. I wonder who our substitute homeroom teacher will be. Denki asked the next day as they made their way towards their class. Can't be any of the teachers we know of, Izumi replied. All the other teachers have their own homerooms to worry about. Especially now that they are down 3 teachers. I hope Snipe and Kana recover soon, Achiko said with a frown. She was not only worried about them but also about Mei since she now had to look after her siblings until her parents recovered. At least she didn't need to worry about her siblings during lessons, since UA has a daycare center run by Horigurama to help look after the children of local pro heroes. I hope so too. Tenya said as they entered the classroom, but we also have our own studies to worry about. Besides, they are currently being cared for by the best doctors around. I am sure that they will recover promptly. I hope they do, Rikido said as they started taking their seats. It's strange not having her around. Well, at least she'll be back in a few days, Denki said with a smile. The bell signaling the start of lessons soon rang, and the entire class turned towards the door, wondering who their substitute homeroom teacher would be. I am here. All Might boomed as he came in through the door, like a hero, much to the class' surprise. Was All Might their substitute homeroom teacher? To introduce you to your substitute homeroom teacher. Whatever excitement All Might's appearance had generated was immediately killed, and replaced with confusion. Wait. You're not our homeroom teacher? Nina asked, sounding disappointed. Unfortunately, I am not. All Might said, but I do know who is. He's an old retired pro who's come out of retirement to help teach you. In fact, he used to be my homeroom teacher when I was at UA. What? Most of the class shouted. Their substitute homeroom teacher was once All Might's homeroom teacher. The class were beside themselves, excited beyond words at being taught by the man who had taught All Might. Even Izumi was excited, eagerly awaiting what she can learn from the retired Dash. Wait, did she already meet his old homeroom teacher? And did he introduce himself by kicking All Might in the face? As if on cue, a yellow blur shot through the open door and a short old man with short, spiky gray hair wearing a full-body monochrome suit with a yellow cape, thick yellow gloves and boots, and a dark domino mask, kicked All Might in the face so hard that it sent him flying into the wall. The short old man, Gran Torino if Izumi remembered it correctly, then landed on top of the podium and turned towards All Might seriously. Is that what you call a quick introduction? The entire class was silent, their jaws wide open and on the other side of the planet. They could not believe their eyes. This short old man just kicked All Might in the face and sent him flying into a wall, and had done so without a care in the world. He didn't even seem fazed by having just kicked the number one hero. Gran Torino then turned to address the class, flashing them a grin that sent a shiver down everyone's spine. All right, Zygotes, as this blockhead just said, I'm your substitute homeroom teacher, Gran Torino. I'll be looking after you until your normal homeroom teacher, Lady Nagant, recovers. That wasn't short, you know, All Might said as he dislodged himself from the wall that was longer than my one. Oh really, Gran Torino said as he turned towards All Might with a smile. Are you questioning me? All Might suddenly started to sweat, looking absolutely terrified. What? No. I wouldn't do anything like that, he said nervously. I'll be leaving now to prepare for my next lesson, he said before he left the room faster than he entered it. Gran Torino smiled before he turned back towards the class. Now then, this will only be for a few days, but even after Lady Nagant's back, you'll still be seeing me around on occasion. The entire class nervously nodded. They all saw the look of fear in All Might's eyes, the sheer terror the man felt in the presence of Gran Torino. All Might was terrified of the man. Which was horrifying, as this was the symbol of peace, the man who smiles in the face of danger. If this Gran Torino was able to put the fear of God into him, then what the hell was he going to do to them? So, now that introductions are done, I've got a few announcements to make, Gran Torino said. First, someone decided that it'll be a great idea to not cancel the UA Sports Festival. There was a mix of confused murmurs. The UA Sports Festival was a big event, but it felt odd to hold it after a major and bloody attack. Is this wise? Tenya asked, standing up with his arm raised. Surely holding such a big event a few weeks after an attack like the USJ is a bad idea? That's what Nizu said, but he was overruled, Gran Torino replied. But don't worry, Nizu managed to get them to up security this year. We'll have the top 10 heroes and the JSDF protecting the sports festival, on top of the UA Sentinels and other pro heroes running security. So anyone who tries to cause trouble is going to have a bad time. Izumi was visibly vibrating with excitement. The top 10 heroes would be here. That's awesome. This'll be the best chance she has to meet them all. She's already met All Might, so that left was the other 9. Burnin, Best Genist, Edshot, Mirko, Daidoji, Ingenium, Gurren, plus Lagan, as those two are inseparable, Ryukyu and Hawks. And with the JSDF on site, then they'll have a hero liaison working with them to help coordinate between the military and the heroes. That meant Apostle would probably be here as well. This was a prime opportunity for her to collect the signatures of the top 10 heroes and then some. Also, the mandatory sex education class has been postponed till next week, Gran Torino added, causing the entire class to let out a relieved sigh. That gave them more time to prepare for it. Who are they kidding? No one is ready for midnight teaching them sexual education. Even Nito, who for the most part was immune to her antics, was dreading the day. Alright then. Now that the announcements are done, does anyone have any questions? Gran Torino asked. The students sat there nervously. They all had questions, yes, but none of them was willing to ask them due to being scared of their substitute homeroom teacher. I mean, the man came in and kicked All Might in the face and acted like it was a normal thing to do. How do you casually ask a man who did that a question? Denki raised his hand. I don't have a question, but an announcement to make, he said as he stood up. The rest of the class turned their heads towards him, worried looks on their faces. Was this it? Was this the start of the class falling apart? I know everyone's been thinking about this, I know I have. But no one's talking about it, so I might as well flat out say it. I think I speak for everyone here when I say that none of us are dropping out of the hero course. Silence befell the class as the other 19 hero course students looked on with shocked eyes. This wasn't what they were expecting Denki to say, especially since he suffered the most during the attack. I know what happened at the USJ was horrible. We saw what is truly waiting for us out there once we graduate. Denki continued that there are villains out there who wouldn't bat an eye at killing someone. And whilst all of us are scared, physically and mentally, because of it, we're all still here, aren't we? Those of us who went to the hospital all came back to the dorms, and those who stayed haven't left. Those villains thought that they could break us, but they didn't. Because we're all still here. If any of us wanted to drop out, then we would have done so by now. But none of us has. He said yes, what happened was terrifying, it was painful. I lost my eye because of it. But we're still here, training to become heroes. Because there's no way in hell that we're allowing something like this to happen again. The class was silent once more. Denki remained standing, a slightly nervous look on his face as the rest of the class stared at him with a mix of surprise and confusion. Most of them expected him to say that he wanted to drop out of the hero course, not make an inspirational speech like that. Kyoko was the first to respond to Denki's very unexpected and rather inspirational speech that she had no idea he was capable of, by clapping. Which was soon followed by the rest of the class, which was then followed by cheering. They agreed with him, they all did. It had been several days since the USJ and none of them had left. None of them wanted to. What they saw was horrible, yes, but if there was a chance that it could happen again, then they were going to be there to stop it. And next time, they will be ready for it. They were just hoping that next time will be later rather than sooner. Denki looked around, surprised by the sudden applause he was getting from his classmates. Holy crap, that actually worked, he thought, not at all expecting his little speech to work out as well as it did. Gran Torino smiled as he watched the class applaud Denki. These kids, he thought, they went through hell, and not only are they still kicking, but they're still carrying on. They're stronger than I thought they'd be. With kids like this looking after the world, the future looks a lot brighter. He smirked, maybe returning to teaching might be a good idea after all. Plus it'll scare the crap out of Toshinori. He wasn't the only one who took notice. Izumi did as well. She didn't have the confidence to pull something like that off, making a speech like that in front of a bunch of people. But if she wanted to become the kind of hero All Might wanted her to be, she was going to need to learn how. If she was to help inspire people, then she needed to get good at public speaking. Because if she was right, then as the highest scorer on the entrance exam, she was going to be the one who makes the opening pledge at the sports festival, and at the moment she did not have the nerve to do that. But she was going to do it anyway, for she had a lot of people counting on her, and she did not want to disappoint them. There was also one other who she did not wish to disappoint, her father, who would be present during the sports festival. Don't you worry, father. I will make you proud. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 20. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.